It is February 1861. The United States is facing the greatest crisis since the Revolution. Following Abraham Lincoln's victory in the recent elections, 7 states have seceded from the Union. They feel threatened by Lincoln's known anti-slavery position and what a possible emancipation of slaves could mean for their states and livelihood. By 1861, there are some 4 million slaves in America. They are regularly subject to abuse, torture, extreme racism, and utter dehumanization. Slaves are also an integral part of the South's agriculture-based economy. They are responsible for the production of cash crops such as sugar, tobacco, rice, and cotton. These provide extreme wealth and influence to the slaveholding planter class, who are in turn deeply opposed to any notions of emancipation. For years now, clashes between abolitionists and slavers have led to both heated debate and various outbreaks of violence. Lincoln's victory in the election, however, ends all debate in the eyes of the Deep South. Their only response is rebellion. A Richmond newspaper characterized the feelings of many in the South regarding the Republican victory as follows:
"A party founded on the single sentiment of hatred to African slavery is now the controlling power."
On February 4th, 1861, delegates from the 7 seceded states convene in Montgomery, Alabama, where they begin drafting a new constitution and establish a governing body for their new republic, the Confederate States of America. The delegates are able to work very quickly in drafting a new constitution, as they are using the original United States Constitution as their blueprint. While this new constitution is in many ways a carbon copy of the original, several notable changes are made, the most significant of which ensures and protects the continuation of the institution of slavery permanently. The convention appoints the Mississippi Senator Jefferson Davis as President of the Confederacy, with Alexander H. Stephens from Georgia as his Vice President. Both men of substance for their time, they were politically described as moderates. According to Civil War historian Gary Gallagher, in appointing moderate politicians, the Confederates were hoping to send an inviting message to the other 8 slaveholding states still in the Union, signaling that this new Confederate government is made up of reasonable and responsible politicians, willing to accommodate the wishes and needs of the less strident slave states who were yet to make a decision on secession. In contrast to all this activity in the South, in Washington, Abraham Lincoln wasn't even inaugurated as president yet. As the convention in Montgomery is taking place, the entire country is on a knife's edge. The Provisional Confederate Congress has authorized an army of 100,000 men. State militias are being rapidly strengthened. Federal property is being seized. On March the 4th, Lincoln is finally inaugurated. In his address, he notes that the federal government will hold, occupy, and possess its property in the South. There will be no invasion or use of force beyond that which is necessary to maintain federal property.
"In your hands, my dissatisfied fellow countrymen, and not in mine, is the momentous issue of civil war. The government will not assail you. You can have no conflict without being yourselves the aggressors."
March 5th, 1861. Tensions are coming to a boil in South Carolina. Protecting the entrance into Charleston Bay and built on an artificial island stands Fort Sumter. While South Carolina had been the first to secede, the federal garrison of Fort Sumter remains loyal to the Union. The fort itself is an impressive feat of military engineering. At full strength, it would have been a formidable obstacle for any military to overcome. In March of 1861, however, Sumter is still unfinished, undermanned, and badly undersupplied. The garrison is commanded by Major Robert Anderson, who, following Lincoln's inauguration, immediately makes a request for supplies, or he would not be able to hold the fort. Lincoln and his cabinet are struggling to make the correct decision. Without supplies and reinforcements, the fort is certainly doomed to fall into the hands of the Confederacy. This would be a political disaster and major embarrassment for Lincoln's new administration. Any attempt at reinforcement, however, risks open hostilities with the Confederacy and potentially makes Lincoln look like the aggressor, coming down from the north with an invading army. After some hesitation, the president finally decides to answer the call. Against the advice of his associates, he sends ships laden with supplies and food, without any weapons, ammunition, or reinforcements. He even notifies the Confederate governor of South Carolina of his intentions and of the ship's contents. Meanwhile, Jefferson Davis is facing agonizing decisions of his own. He is under pressure from his own side to gain control of Fort Sumter. Not wanting to fire the first shot or also be seen as the aggressor, however, Davis decides to try and force the fort into surrendering before Lincoln's supply ships arrive. Several attempts are made to negotiate with the fort's garrison, and Major Anderson even implies that he may surrender if he is not resupplied by April 15th. The patience of the local Confederate forces is running thin, however. One last attempt is made to force Anderson to surrender, but after his refusal, the order is given. At 4:30 a.m. on April the 12th, the first shot of the Civil War rings across Charleston Bay. Confederate batteries open up a deafening cannonade directed at the fort. Observers in the city climb their rooftops to watch the bone-chilling spectacle, some with fear, others with exhilaration. The desperate garrison attempts to return fire, but low on ammunition and facing an overwhelming amount of artillery, they can do little damage. The bombardment continues for a full 36 hours. But finally, outgunned, hungry, with fire starting inside the fort, Anderson and his men accept the formal surrender and are allowed to be evacuated north. Miraculously, no one is killed during the 36-hour bombardment, but 2 of Anderson's men die after the surrender when one of their cannons accidentally explodes during a gun salute. News soon reached Washington of the fort's surrender. The following day, Lincoln issues a call for 75,000 volunteers to suppress the rebellion. Hearing of this decision, Virginia, Arkansas, North Carolina, and Tennessee also secede from the Union to join the Confederacy. Few at the time had seemed to realize that the events that had just taken place would lead to the most devastating war in American history, with more Americans killed in the coming 4 years than in all the wars combined since. Thank you for watching, everyone. More videos on the American Civil War are currently in production and will be out in the near future, as I intend to make this into a series that will cover the entire conflict and include all the major battles. If you would like to support the channel, consider liking, subscribing, and sharing the video. It helps immensely. Also, feel free to follow History Puffin on TikTok and X. Thanks again for watching. Adieu.